Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. For those of you that weren't on our first webinar of the year, Happy New Year. Today we have the pleasure of having two of our team members with us, Savannah Dill and Isaiah Donnelly. They are both on the Power Platform team. And they are going to be presenting on Power Up series. This is the first webinar of our Power Up series webinars, and it's just going to be an introduction to the Power Platform. So Savannah and Isaiah will be giving you a little bit of what's going to be coming in future webinars. And I just want to remind you that we are recording this webinar, and we will post it to our on-demand webinar library for you to review again or share with anyone. And you can find our library under our resources tab on our website at innovia.com. And we do encourage you to ask questions during our presentation. So please feel free to type them into the questions box, and we will answer them at the end of our session. So now I'm going to turn it over to Savannah to kick off our presentation.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Power Up series, the introduction to the Power Platform. The Power Up series is going to be a five-part series that is dedicated to educating on the Power Platform. Throughout each series, we will discuss use cases, real-world examples, and how you can get started with this innovative platform. This is an introduction, so throughout this presentation, we will be giving a high-level overview of Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Pages, and we will dive deeper into each of the components throughout 2023. Angie will be putting a link in the chat if you would like to sign up for those. If something catches your eye today, you can learn more about them in a deeper view during one of those individual focused sessions. All right, and before we get started on jumping into the platform, I wanted to do brief introductions. My name is Savannah Dill. I have known quite a few of you. If you are a client, if you are a prospective customer, welcome. Isaiah and I are both Power Platform consultants, and if you would like to contact me, my contact information is on the screen, and I will turn it over to Isaiah.
Hi everyone, my name is Isaiah Donnelly. So working with Savannah on that team in Power, I probably do know a few of you based on some of the solutions that we've already done in the past. Once again, my contact's on that screen as well.
All right, before we get started and we go into a high-level overview of each of the components, we want to briefly introduce each component. So the Microsoft Power Platform is a suite of applications. It currently includes Power Apps, Power BI, Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents, and now Power Pages. These apps seamlessly integrate with one another and your common data sources to not only view and interpret data, but also to allow interaction and publishing of data or automating business processes. So kind of going one by one, these are the parts of the Power Platform that we will be discussing today, starting with Power BI. Power BI is a business analytics tool. It allows you to visualize your data, build insights, and connect multiple data sources, creating really cool solutions that kind of break the constraints of traditional reporting. Power Apps is the next component, and this allows non-developers to build apps that can be used on the web or on mobile devices. Like Power BI, it connects to a wide range of data sources. So the big thing to remember with Power Apps is it's low code. So if you're like myself, Microsoft tends to refer to people who have no developer or coding experiences as citizen developers. So The Power Platform is very friendly to citizen developers. It's very easy to pick up and learn, and it kind of just opens a whole door of possibilities without all the educational constraints. Power Automate is the next part of the platform that we'll be focusing on. Power Automate is all about automation. With Power Automate, you can build logic-based rules with conditions and actions, and those can be automatic or triggered. So, they could be created on a schedule, or they could be triggered by, say, you pushing a button. All right, and the last part of the Power Platform is Power Pages. Power Pages was just kind of released by Microsoft late last year. It's very cool. It's on the up, so they are still kind of doing some development work, but it is generally available. And Power Pages allows citizen developers to create low-code websites. So it's very user-friendly. It's a very drag-and-drop kind of platform, and it allows everything to be backed by data and data input. So that's very cool and very innovative. That being said, we are going to jump into Power BI. Alrighty, so like we said, Power BI is a business intelligence, business analytics tool. It is my favorite part of the Power Platform. So if I sound like a bit of a nerd, it is because I am. All right, so Power BI, just kind of doing a surface level description. It is a business analytics platform that can be used on the cloud through Power BI service and connect to cloud platforms such as Business Central SaaS. Or it can also connect to on-premise platforms such as Nav or Business Central on-prem, also data sources such as Excel, as well as many other connectors. One thing about Power BI is it is completely free to use. So to download Power BI, you will simply search in the Microsoft Store, Power BI Desktop. Power BI Desktop is a free tool that allows you to pull in your data, refresh your data manually, and build those intuitive reports that are all modeled together and react dynamically. If you want to take that to the next level and share a report with your organization, that's where you have to start considering licensing. So there are a few different licenses that you can obtain with Power BI. The most common ones would be Power BI Pro and Premium. And those enable you to use Power BI Service, which is the cloud-based platform that allows you to share reports within your organization through what they call workspaces. Now, we'll get more into that with the more deep dive into Power BI within the Power Up series. But it is good to know, that this is initially a free application. And the last point, Power BI, like all parts of the Power Platform, want to power up citizen developers. So you are encouraged to, use Excel-like formulas called DAX to create measures and other functions that only enhance your reports. All right, and I kind of wanted to go over the journey of Power BI and what the process looks like. So at a high level, using Power BI is composed of 4 or 5 steps, depending on the path that you choose. So the process starts the same for any type of reporting, and that's connecting to your data sources. Like I said, these data sources can be on-prem, they can be online, they can be something like Excel or a data warehouse. Whatever the data source may be, there is likely a connector. If there is not a connector, You can create custom connectors with the help of a developer. But I really do encourage you to go out and look at the different connectors available. Once again, we will go more in depth with this in the next Power Up series on Power BI alone. So once you have your data source connected, you will then move your data into the Power Query editor. So this is the back end of Power BI, and it's where you do all of your ETL transformations. What do I mean by ETL? That stands for extract, transform, and load. And this is where you can make your data clean. You can add columns. You can do so many things in the Power Query editor, with the main goal of making your data clean and more usable. Once you are satisfied with your transformations, you can then apply the changes and begin modeling your data. Data modeling is something that's really important, and basically it allows you to create the relationships between your different tables. And this is what enables the interactivity between visuals and other tables. So this is where you start to really break the constraints of traditional reporting, because it allows for everything to be dynamic and shift based on slicers and clicks. And then the last step will be to visualize your data. And this is the fun part of creating reports, because you get to use all of the out-of-the-box visualizations that Microsoft gives you. There's also a store that you can explore to enhance your report beyond just columns and rows. So the 4 steps that I just went over, that's 90% of the development process with Power BI. The last steps you can take is exporting your report. Primarily, people export to Power BI Service, which is the cloud-based platform that I mentioned earlier that allows you to share within your organization. Or you can also export tables to Excel to do further manipulation if you would wish. You can also export to things like PDF and PNG files, but like I said, these are the most common, and that is the last 10% of the journey of Power BI. All right, and because Innovia Consulting typically, most of our clients are on Business Central or NAV, or considering it, we wanted to quickly put in the Business Central integration with each of the components. So with Power BI, there is quite a lot of integration with both NAV and Business Central. Some reasons you might consider Power BI when thinking about Business Central or NAV is because you can recreate standard Business Central reports. And this is really cool because, like with other Power BI reports, it kind of enhances the report and takes it up the next level by using visualizations and slicers, filters, etc. Which brings to the next point of visualizing the data in unique and valuable ways. And because you are visualizing your data in unique and valuable ways, then you are able to quickly make business decisions. All right, and you might be thinking, how might I connect Business Central or NAV and extract data from it? So out of the box, Microsoft offers Business Central and NAV connectors. Now, there are requirements that surround each of these, which we can dive a bit more into with the Power BI Power Up series. But on a surface level, the Business Central SaaS connector only requires your standard credentials to extract data. So the way that you would log into Business Central will be the same with Power BI. It will have you sign in with your organizational account, and then it will expose the tables that are available there. With NAV and Business Central on-prem, you will need additional credentials to extract your data, and that is because Windows authentication is not supported So you will need to use what is called a web service access key in an instance that uses it. All right. And going back to those connectors a little bit, when talking about data with Power BI, there is over 150 connectors. So just because I haven't mentioned a certain program or software today, that doesn't mean that those are not available. You go to extract data in Power BI by using the Get Data button. It is in the ribbon that is very native to Microsoft products. And it is probably the most used button within Power BI. And this kind of acts like a starting place for all of your reports. So you choose Get Data, and then you search for your connector. Like I said, with the nav and Business Central connector, each one has different requirements, but many have an easy and seamless connection process. And connectors can be standard or custom, meaning they are out of the box, or you can have a developer create one, typically through an API call. All right, and the last thing to kind of go over are some real world examples why you might use Power BI. Now, we use Power BI internally here at Novia every day to make business choices, and I know a lot of our customers have done so as well. Some real world examples would be using sales intelligence. So, enabling your sales team to make choices based on their customers and their sales. Power BI is also great for providing context to C-suite. So perhaps you want to make a report, a financial report that you only want the C-suite eyes to see. That is very common and very doable. Some other examples may be performance management and goal tracking. With Power BI's visuals, you are able to, easily create goals and track them as you go throughout the year or quarter or month or whatever it may be, and whatever conditions that surrounds. All right, and the last thing is you may want to recreate Business Central native reports, such as AR report, AP report, or changelog report. So those are all very doable within Power BI and some examples as to why you might want to consider using it. All right. The next part of the platform we'll go over is Power Automate. So Power Automate is business process automation. It is a very cool platform. Kind of going over a brief description of what Power Automate is. Power Automate is a tool that allows you to automate tasks and business processes. Tasks can be as simple as sending an email or more complex, such as, I want to upload this document at this time on this day at my desired frequency. The exciting thing about Power Automate is that it is fluid with connectors like the other parts of the platform. There are a large bucket of connectors available for use, and these applications can be used between each other. For example, you could create a workflow that posts a tweet automatically every time you create a blog post. If you can't find a connector to a specific application, Power Automate enables the use of APIs to call third-party applications, much like Power BI with the custom connectors. And tasks with Power Automate can be personal or business-focused. Personal tasks can be those that typically make your life easier by eliminating time-consuming tasks. Some examples of this may be sending an email or a notification, or perhaps downloading content from an email and putting it into a folder. Business tasks may be more focused and require human interaction. An example of this would be an approval process or maybe a workflow that alerts a customer engagement specialist anytime a prospective client gets added to a database. Like the other parts of the platform, you can connect to multiple data sources, including Dataverse, the Microsoft ecosystem, and third-party applications. All right, and just like Power BI, we will kind of go over why you might want to use Power Automate. So there are 4 points here. The first one is it is simple to use. Like the other parts of the Power Platform, citizen developers are encouraged to pick up the platform, so you don't need a developer background to use Power Automate. The only thing that I would say would be required to use Power Automate would be a critical thinking mindset. So to know, chronologically what steps would take place in this process. The other point to why you might use Power Automate would be that it is exhaustive. So with Power Automate, you can connect to standard connectors or use custom APIs to connect to third-party applications. And it is also powerful. At least from me thinking personally, I can't think of very many softwares that allow you to create complex workflows, approvals, and conditions that happen, based on the information that you put into it. So, flows can be very simple or very complex, but they can be very powerful in the way that they impact your daily life when it comes to personal or business tasks. All right, and the last reason you might want to use Power Automate is because flows are shareable. So you can share workflows with others to not only improve, your daily life, but also those of your entire organization or those of, your coworkers individually or teams. All right, and considering Business Central integration with Power BI or Power Automate. I told you I was a nerd about Power BI. So when it comes to Power Automate and BC integration, integration lays heavily around approvals and notifications. The good thing about Power Automate and Business Central is there are many templates to use out of the box. Some of those templates include notifying Business Central when an account changes, request approval for Business Central purchase order, and many more. And those can all be found by searching for the Business Central connector. And just like Business Central, there are many other templates. So perhaps you don't use Business Central. That is all right. There are many other connectors such as Outlook, Excel, SharePoint is a huge one. So if Power Automate is intimidating for you to get started with, I would recommend starting with a template and building upon those skills. Microsoft Learn is also a great resource to get started. All right, and lastly, here are some real world examples as to what is applicable to Power Automate. So the biggest one is approvals and the approval process. The desire to eliminate busy, tedious work. And you may also use it for recruitment. So perhaps you want to connect it to a Power App and connect it to a form where there are alerts to various others to notify you that a candidate has applied for a position, or you could even use it for a pre-screening tool. You may also just use it throughout your day for alerts and notifications surrounding whatever software is a necessity in your daily work life. All right, so those are covering Power BI and Power Automate. I'm going to turn it over to Isaiah to cover Power Apps and Power Pages.
All right. How you doing, everyone? Once again, my name is Isaiah Donnelly, one of the consultants here at Innovia on Team Empower. Like Savannah mentioned, I'll be covering Power Apps and Power Pages, which are two really cool features that are a part of the Power Platform. So, hold on. So just starting with the description of what Power Apps are. So we all are familiar with applications, right? You can think, your social media. You can think, I use my Ecobee in my house all the time to control the thermostat. But essentially what they are, it gives us visibility into a data source and also gives us this ability to manipulate that data source using an interface, right? Power Apps gives citizen developers this same ability. One of the big things that it allows us to do is we can quickly build business apps for your business needs. And this, once again, gives us access into your actual data platform. And I'll talk about this more, but it just kind of gives you this ability to do those CRUD actions, right? So you can create, read, update, and delete into whatever that platform is that you're using. These can be either customizable or data-driven. Power Apps comes in two flavors. One we call Canvas apps, and the other one's called model-driven apps. Those Canvas apps gives the user the full ability to customize that interface depending on what their needs are. The data-driven apps is driven by data, so it's has a model that's built underneath it, and it's not as customizable as those Canvas apps. It just gives you essentially another way to view that data that you have in that platform. It also gives us this ability to embed business logic and workflows into the app. So if you have if we're talking Business Central, you have like certain documents that need to be approved at a certain time, or you have certain forms that have to be filled out in a certain way, you can set that up in your app, and it allows you to make sure people follow whatever that process is. It also gives you this ability to, automate some of your business processes and transform some of those things you might do manually, whether it may be send an email or like handing someone a paper, you can now maybe have that done on this actual application. The last thing, you can use it on all forms of media. So whether you want to use your computer or your phone or your tablets, right? Whatever app you build, you can build it to actually be used in each of those mediums. Next, I want to talk about the Business Central integration. So this is, I just referred to this CRUD capability, but this ability to create, read, update, and delete data inside your app. And if you really think about it, that's what all applications are. You can either create something and add it to the data source. You can view something that's already in the data source. You can update something that's already in that data source, or you can just completely delete it out of the data source, right? And this is what applications allow us to do. Some of these things are things like sales quotes, sales orders, purchase orders, production orders. These things can either be created, read, updated, or deleted in an application using Power Apps that you've created. And you can once again add that business logic or those workflows that are particular to your company process. Going over to that next slide for data source integration. So we just talked about Business Central, but as you know, Power Platform has these beautiful things called connectors that allow you to connect to a plethora of different platforms, whether it be Business Central or whether it be Outlook, anything in the Microsoft ecosystem. But also you can have custom connectors, those APIs to whatever platforms that your company is using in particular. Power Platform does have the ability to connect to those as well. And you can use those in Power Apps. So wherever there is data, wherever you house your data, Power Platform makes it pretty easy for you to connect to those different data sources, whether it's in that Microsoft ecosystem or even if it's not, we still have that ability to either create a custom API or if you can, as you see in this picture, you know, there's like Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. There's like Google Drive. There's so many other connectors that are already built in natively to Power Platform 2 that you're able to connect that data with. And once again, making that app, we're talking about those CRUD capabilities. So once again, creating, reading, updating, and deleting. Wherever that data lies, we can access it using Power Platform and Power Apps. And then my last slide for Power Apps would be a real world example. So this is actually something that we created for one of our customers. It was a work center inspection app. So, you know, the user story for that app essentially was, you know, as an operations manager, I want to be able to view the records that have already been submitted for work center inspection and also complete an actual inspection entry so that I can just monitor, you know, a particular work center. So I just put the three main screens on here. One was the login screen where you can kind of allocate usernames and passwords. And then the next screen was that add inspection screen, but also that gallery. There you can see that there's a picture attached to the particular inspection. There is an inspection name and the date. And then you also have that ability to add that inspection to just by clicking, you know, that button. And then that next screen would be that inspection entry form. So this was, you know, for this particular company, but they just went through and wanted to add, okay, what item are we looking at? What's the work center? What's the package type? What are the weights? You know, are these different standards met? Are we wearing hairnets? So on and so forth. And then they would press submit. It would show up here on that inspection gallery. It was also loaded into a SharePoint site where they can also go look at tabular data. But once again, this is just a really great example of how Power Apps can kind of make this a lot easier because initially they were using Excel spreadsheets and they would just go down there and they were like write down the information. They weren't able to take pictures. Now they can just, you know, have a tablet on hand on that production floor, walk around, just check the boxes, you know, type in weights and things like that, and then move on to the next one. And then that's automatically stored in an actual data source. And you also have the ability to view that data on the app as well. So this is just one of, you know, the really cool real world examples that we've already used Power Apps for. The possibilities and the potential for the application is endless. Next, we're going to talk about Power Pages. So Power Pages, once again, in that same vein, is for citizen developers. So if you're not a pro dev or you don't have extreme coding knowledge, you're still able to build a business website, whether it be for marketing or, you know, employee or client portals, right? So you can do kind of anything you want just using this InDesign Studio that we'll talk about once we move to that description slide. So on the description slide, you'll see that big thing is we can quickly create secure low-code business websites. And, you know, if you really think about it, that's a huge leap from, you know, back in the day when you had to like hire a developer or, you know, they had those different websites that you can use to create websites. Now, Microsoft has made this tool where you can literally go into a studio and just like create a website however you like. And they already have like templates that are built out for you that you can kind of build upon, or you can just create your own customizable experience using the items and you know, the functions that they have already built in. Some things you can add would be like obviously text, video, imagery, and some forms too if you want, you know, your customers or your clients to be able to like fill out some data that you can store. You can also place that on your site. Now, the big caveat with Power Pages is that all that data is securely stored in Dataverse, right? And if you guys aren't familiar, Dataverse is the native data storage for Power Platform that's built under every app. This doesn't mean that you can't connect to other data sources. It just means that you have to connect those data sources to Dataverse, and then this actual function of Power Pages has to pull the data from that Dataverse. At the moment, this is the only way of connecting data with Power Pages, but I can see that changing in the future. just depending on what the customer need is. Just like Power Apps, it does run seamlessly in browser, phone, or tablet. And then going to that next slide, we've kind of already covered it, but the data source integration, once again, it does connect exclusively to Dataverse. So if you do want to use Power Pages, then we would have to talk about, how much data storage you'll need, and then if we need to add more Dataverse storage for you. Now, once again, this does not mean that you cannot get data from different platforms. It just means that that data has to be stored in Dataverse for Power Pages to actually utilize it. Once it's in Dataverse, Power Pages can utilize it, and this is, essentially that same screenshot from Power Apps, but these are kind of like the gamut of the different connectors and data platforms that you can actually get data from. And then that last slide for real world examples. As of right now, the biggest things we see Power Pages being used for are things like employee onboarding or employee portals just for like information, or customer portals for actual customer engagement with your company on that website, and lastly, just company marketing. So obviously you can use the actual Power Pages application for anything you'd like or anything you would want, external facing or internal facing. But at the moment, the biggest things we see once again are employee onboarding, customer and client portals, and company marketing. And that is it for Power Apps and Power Pages.
All right, just checking in. I haven't seen any questions in the chat, but perhaps I missed anything. I missed something. Angie, were there any questions?
Yes,
Or does
we do have a couple.
Okay.
The first one is, can Power Platform work with Nav or BC?
So the Power Platform can work to extend Nav and Business Central. Some of them do it a little bit more gracefully, like Power BI. There aren't really any considerations outside of the on-premises connectors. With things like Power Automate and apps, when it comes to Nav instances specifically, I believe they only support Nav 2017 and forward. So if you have anything prior to that, the connector will not be enabled for your use. But other than that, both of those platforms are easily integrated into the platform. If you are unable to connect for whatever reason, there are ways around it, such as if you're only looking at a small amount of data that's static, meaning it doesn't change, you can export to Excel, and then we can pull in that data from an Excel file or SharePoint, something like that. So in most cases, it is very simple to connect to both.
Okay, thank you. And I got one more question, but if anybody does have any questions, please go ahead and get those submitted and we'll get them addressed. Can you connect to test and production environments?
Yes, all parts of the platform do have this capability within the connector. Like the previous question, I'm a bit biased towards BI because I think it's the most graceful of the switches between the two. So with Power BI in specific, it is super simple because web services are tenant-wide and not just company-wide. So if you publish one in one company, it is available in all. And so that includes the different types of environments as well. So if you would like to publish something first in your test environment, play with the data and play with the report, You can then switch it over to production using the navigation features in the Power Query Editor. The only thing I would be weary of would be if your test environment has less or more data than the production environment, then you could run into some issues with your data model. But overall, it is very fluid.
Okay, well, it looks like those are the only questions that we have for you guys today. Thank you again for attending, everyone, and thank you to Isaiah and Savannah for the presentation.
Thank you. I hope everyone enjoyed the presentation. If you have any further questions, feel free to reference our contact information and send us an email or send support@inovia.com a ticket, and they will connect you with us.
All right, you can also check out our website for more of our upcoming events, and that's inovia.com/events. I did put all of the links for the upcoming Power app, Power Automate, Power Pages, Power BI in the chat. So you can reference them as there too. And we also have our training workshop page up, and that's at inovia.com/workshops. We do have a variety of workshops to fit your role, so check out the ones that are right for you and your team. If you have not heard our latest Inovia Conversation podcast with Steve and Jeff, we have a library of episodes for you to listen to. So browse through our selection and subscribe so you'll get notified when those new episodes air. And we have our customer conference information up on our website, and you can visit our conference page at inovia.com/conferences. The Inovia Customer Conference is a free event for you to attend, so check out the conference page to learn more and register for our event. And you can also register for Dynamics Con Live. Both conferences are back-to-back at the same venue starting on May 21st. So register now so you don't miss out on these two great events. All right, everyone, thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you soon on another Inovia webinar. Take care, everyone.